Hey everyone, Israel is currently in a war against the terror organization Hamas, and we know how hard it can be to keep up with all the news. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of the latest developments out of Israel, we're here for you. I'm Ladarga Velazi, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review. After 54 years in power, the tyrannical regime of the Assad family in Syria is over. Overnight, the surprise lightning offensive reached and overtook the capital city, Damascus. The Syrian army did not offer resistance and announced the end of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Assad reportedly fled by plane to an unknown destination, and in a dramatic turn, there are reports from the frontier indicating that Israeli tanks have moved into the no man's land, acting as a demilitarized buffer zone between the countries at war. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Prime Minister Netanyahu was on the northern border and spoke about the developments in Syria as being historic. Netanyahu said that as a temporary measure, the IDF has moved tanks into the no man's land separating Israel and Syria.
One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
Overnight, the rebel forces entered and took control of the capital, Damascus. The Syrian army is not offering resistance, and the army command announced that Assad's regime had ended. The rebels' quick advance through Aleppo and then Homs and Hama paved the way toward Damascus. In the final days, Iranians and Russian allies departed, and the army was in retreat, with thousands of reported desertions. President Bashar al-Assad's 24-year rule ended abruptly overnight as the week-long rebel offensive reached the Syrian capital, and resistance melted away. Al-Assad reportedly fled Syria for an unknown destination. His father, Hafez al-Assad, was a bitter enemy of Israel, ordering the attack on the Golan Heights in the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Unlike Egypt and Jordan, Syria never signed a peace agreement with Israel, and the nations remain in a state of war. Crowds of Syrians gathered in the central squares of Damascus and other cities recently taken by the rebels to celebrate, while chanting anti-Assad slogans. As the rebels advanced toward Damascus, its leaders said they wished for peace in the region and did not express enmity toward Israel. Its statement read that after 50 years of oppression, we announce the end of this dark period and the beginning of a new era in Syria. To the displaced all over the world, free Syria awaits you. Syria strives to be a place that coexists in peace and justice prevails and rights are established.
وإسقاط الطاغية بشار الأسد وإطلاق سراح جميع المعتقلين المظلومين من سجون النظام. إن غرفة عمليات فتح دمشق تهيب بالإخوة المجاهدين والمواطنين والحفاظ على جميع ممتلكات الدولة السورية الحرة. عاشت سوريا حرة أبية لكل السوريين بجميع أطيافهم.
The rebels included a number of elements, including those that were affiliated with al-Qaeda and other Islamic radical anti-Western groups. Israel is closely watching to see what kind of government will be established in Damascus and what its attitude will be toward the Jewish state.
And joining us now with more on the fall of the Assad regime and what this means for Syria and the region is Amar al-Selmo, White Helmet's activist from Aleppo, Syria. Thank you for joining us. So one thing is certain, after 24 years, the Bashar al-Assad regime has fallen. What is the feeling like for Syrians today?
Today is a day of celebration, a day of happiness, a day of victory for every human being. Defeating this criminal, defeating this killer with his gang is a real victory for a human being, for Syrian and for a human being. Right now, Syrian can return to Syria. Imagine a million of people will return to Syria. Syria of civilization will rebuild again. And of course, we celebrating not only defeating the Assad, but also defeating the Iranian militia, defeating those terrorists who came cross border from Iraq, from Iran, from Lebanon, defeating Hezbollah. Hezbollah is like in Syria, he play a killer role, killing and supporting the criminal in Syria. Today, Syrian can unite and can have peace and can rebuild Syria, all Syria. Syrian deserve peace, deserve to be free, and deserve to work together and to have peace with each other.
And is there any concern at all on your part about the new groups in power?
Right now, our main goal is to have to rebuild Syria and to live in together, to exist together, and for justice and accountability. Actually, justice and accountability is so important. Those factions who coming from Idlib are Syrian. All of them Syrian. They are the son of the displaced people who were displaced by the bus. Regarding the radicalization, if Iran, if Hezbollah did not intervene in Syria, there would be no radical people. There would be no extremist people, because the existence of those sectarian militia radicalized the group and turned Syria to be a hell during this time. But now what we have seen in Aleppo is different completely. We don't see any looting, we don't see any killing, we don't see any revenge, we see just like a freedom of belief, a freedom of movement. Everything is like we live together, and what we see from their statement is real inspiring. We have concern, every Syrian have concern. Like if any country there is the right party win the election, there will be a concern. But we depend on Syria. Syrian people can rebuild their history, can rebuild their future. Syria is Aleppo, Syria is Damascus, Syria is Homs, Syria is Hamas, Syria is Deir ez-Zor, Syria is Qamishlo. All these cities the people of this city can surely guarantee a new Syria with variety, with everyone to live in peace. We don't to have any enemy outside Syria. We want to have any enemy inside Syria.
So you're very optimistic that this will lead to a better future for Syria. What do you think is likely to happen in the near future?
Syrians right now are so optimistic of the future. To see the million of returnees lifting the tent and returning to their homes is really optimistic. It's really something can inspire everyone. To see the detainees. Imagine that women, children are detained with their mother in Saidnaya. Today, when we saw Saidnaya prison, where there is children, there is mother for 10 years, for 8 years, for many years, they are imprisoned without accord. This is terrorism. This is terrorism. When someone has an aircraft to attack hospital, to attack infrastructure, to attack market, this is the terrorism. To make a Pentagon and spread fear, to spread death, to spread militia, to spread radicalism in Syria. This is the terrorism. The big terrorist has gone, and Syria can recover now without these terrorists.
And it's no secret that Iran was supporting the Assad regime while Turkey was backing the opposition. Iran seems to be the big loser in all of this, but a lot of powers at play here. How do you think these events will potentially reshape Syria specifically and the region as a whole?
Of course, Iran play so bad role in Syria from the beginning. If Iran did not intervene in Syria, this could happen 10 years ago. Imagine if this happened 10 years ago, and this criminal flee 10 years ago, we will not lose 1 million. We will not 1 million lives. We will not see 200,000 are considered like disappeared. We will not see 13 million displaced internally and outside. We will not see terrorism. We will not see radicalism. But because of Iran, because of the militia in Syria, because of Hezbollah in Syria, all this happened. All this accumulated and happened in Syria, and we lost Syria. Syria right now in ruin. They steal Syria right now. I can sleep without thinking that Assad, the son, the little Assad will rule my son. I right now so confident that I will not see my son detained for years without court, without even to be able to ask for him. Right now we looking for a new Syria peaceful Syria, peaceful with the people in Syria, and peaceful with all the neighbors in Syria.
And if you had a message to the world today as a Syrian, what would this message be?
For those who are still talking about terrorists, Assad regime is the big terrorist attacking hospital. We don't see the UN talking about how Assad attacked hospital in Aleppo, the university hospital, the biggest hospital and the oldest hospital in Aleppo. We don't see the UN talking about a hospital being attacked in Idlib. So we don't from anyone just to give a negative future for Syria. We need everyone, every country, every international community, every platform to help Syria, to collaborate with Syria, to build Syria. We need every effort from every country to help us to rebuild our country, to recover and to build free Syria for all the citizens in Syria.
Absolutely. Let's hope for a better future for the people of Syria and the region as a whole. Thank you.
The new rebel leader of Syria, Mohammed al-Julani, is entrenched in the Syrian capital and is the interim leader of the country, replacing the al-Assad family dynasty of 54 years. Israel is closely watching to see if he is an enemy or a potential peace partner. More on the new Syrian leader. When he was commander of the al-Qaeda faction in the Syrian civil war, Golani was a shadowy figure who kept out of the public eye, even when the group emerged as the most powerful faction fighting the al-Assad government. His messaging since reaching Damascus has been aimed at assuring minorities that they respect all minority rights and are Syrian patriots and not jihadists. A leading Syrian expert explains Golani, saying he retooled, refashioned, and made new allies.
It wants to establish an Islamic order, but under the leadership of Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani since 2017, it has tried in the northwest region of Idlib, over which it ruled mostly 3.5 to 4 million people. It has tried to assure minorities living there, Christians, other religious minorities, for them to have a role and to not be persecuted. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been violence against opposition. It was an authoritarian rule. It was not a democratic, liberal, secular kind of rule. Certainly not.
Golani severed ties with al-Qaeda in 2016 and effectively rebranded his group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, emerging as the de facto leader of the rebel-held northwestern Syria. There, he developed strong ties with Turkey and received strong support. In initial comments, al-Golani indicated that Syria will be democratic and inclusive for all ethnic groups, and that it will seek peaceful relations with all of its neighbors.
The IDF confirmed that since the fall of the al-Assad regime in Syria at the start of this week, Israel has hit some 320 military and strategic targets, eliminating about 80% of Syrian capabilities. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz documents the unprecedented destruction of an enemy military.
The IDF has now released footage of Operation Bashan Arrow. The operation to destroy Syrian weapons of the former al-Assad regime was named after the Golan and South Syria region's biblical name. The IDF confirmed that since the fall of the al-Assad regime in Syria at the start of the week, Israel has hit some 320 Syrian military and strategic targets, eliminating about 80% of Syrian capabilities. The targets destroyed include air defense, missile depots, drones, helicopters, fighter jets, naval vessels, and chemical weapons manufacturing facilities. Missiles destroyed include long-range Scuds and coast-to-sea missiles. Meanwhile, the IDF said it continues its deployment in the buffer between Israel and Syria on the Golan Heights on the Syrian side of the border. The IDF has stressed that its deployment to the buffer is a defensive and temporary measure amid the chaos in Syria following the fall of the al-Assad regime.
צה"ל משלים כעת את ההתבססות במרחב החיץ ובאזורים שולטים על מנת להגן על תושבי רמת הגולן ועל אזרחי מדינת ישראל. הנחיתי, יחד עם ראש הממשלה את צה"ל, להקים מרחב הגנה סטרילי מנשק ומאיומי טרור בדרום סוריה.
Naturally, the UN complained about the Israeli incursion. Israel rejected the criticism and declared its right to defend itself against potential threats.
על מנת למנוע היא התבססות והתארגנות של הטרור בסוריה ויצירת מציאות שתהיה דומה למה שהיה בלבנון ובעזה לפני 7 באוקטובר. לא נאפשר את הדבר הזה, לא נאפשר איומים על מדינת ישראל.
And today marks a historic day as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu testifies in his own corruption trial. ILTV's Ariella Alhiani was outside the court during the trial with more information.
Yes, thank you, Ladar. So today marks a significant day in Israeli history as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu becomes the first sitting Prime Minister to testify in his own corruption trial. Now, the trial, which has been ongoing for many years, is expected to dominate headlines for months to come. Netanyahu's testimony begins after his request to delay proceedings citing the ongoing war were denied, and his defense team actually argues that this decision reflects the political nature of the case. Now, the prosecution has presented 3 cases. Case 1000 alleging Netanyahu accepted luxury gifts such as cigars and champagne. Case 2000 involving a media-related quid pro quo. And case 4000, the most serious, accusing him of bribery linked to favourable media coverage. Now, case 4000 has actually weakened significantly as a key witness's testimony was found unreliable, therefore casting doubt on the bribery charge. Now, throughout all of this, Netanyahu has consistently denied any wrongdoings, and he's actually called the allegations a political witch hunt aimed at toppling his leadership. And so now, finally, after many years of controversy which have divided the nation and have also cast the Prime Minister in a very negative light, Netanyahu can finally take the stand and share his truth and his side of the story.
An undetected drone fired from Yemen made direct impact on a building in Yavne. No injuries were caused. The Air Force said that the Houthi UAV was not identified by the Air Force and no attempt was made to intercept. The drone struck a penthouse in a residential building, and firefighters were called in to put out the blaze caused by the impact. There was a great deal of damage, but no injuries reported.
And now back to the hostages. According to reports in the Arabic and Hebrew media, Hamas has handed over to Egyptian mediators a list of Israeli hostages, living and dead, that are held in captivity. Now, if that proves to be true, it will fulfill a major Israeli demand ahead of a potential hostage for ceasefire deal, although Israeli officials say they have not yet received the list. Israel maintains that 100 Israeli hostages, living and dead, are still held in Gaza. According to the Arabic media, Hamas handed over a list of 30 living Israeli hostages that would be freed in the first stage of the Egyptian-mediated ceasefire plan. IDF Chief Halevi made a surprise trip to Cairo amid rising speculation that a hostage for ceasefire deal could be within reach. Shin Bet Chief Ronen Bar and Halevi reportedly met senior Egyptian officials in Cairo to discuss issues related to the Egyptian border, including the Philadelphia access and the Rafah crossing. The IDF is deployed in those areas, and the Egyptian proposal reportedly includes arrangements for the Palestinian Authority to control the Gazan side of the strategic border crossing. According to a senior Israeli official, Jerusalem believes that Hamas may now finally be ready for a deal that does not guarantee an end to the 432-day-old war in Gaza. As another reminder that the war is still ongoing, Hamas fired 2 rockets towards southern Israel this morning. Both were shot down by the air defense.
And moving on, in another incident of devastating anti-Semitism across the globe, a synagogue in Melbourne was set on fire, causing significant damage and leaving 1 person injured. More from ILTV's Ariella Lahiani.
A devastating fire at a synagogue in Melbourne, suspected to be an act of arson, has left Australia's Jewish community shaken and sparked international condemnation. The blaze, which severely damaged the Adass Israel synagogue early Friday, is being investigated as an act of terror. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese stated that the attack was clearly designed to instill fear and meets the definition of terrorism. Authorities are still searching for 2 masked suspects seen fleeing the scene. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the attack as a despicable act of anti-Semitism, linking it to what he calls the anti-Israel stance of Australia's Labour government, fostering an anti-Israel climate. He cited Australia's recent support of a United Nations resolution advocating for a Palestinian state and its refusal to grant a visa to a former Israeli minister. The incident has also drawn harsh criticism from Australian media figures. Sky News host Shari Markson accused Albanese of failing to take a firm stand against rising anti-Semitism, saying racism against Jews has been tolerated. Australia has faced a surge in anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents since the start of the Israel-Hamas war last October. While most pro-Palestinian protests have remained peaceful, tensions are rising. Australian authorities insist they are committed to combating anti-Semitism with recent investments in Jewish community security. But as investigations continue, Jewish communities in Australia and beyond are left shaken by this latest attack. And now we turn to Mayan Hoffman, who is standing by in Jerusalem with some exciting updates about the Paraguay embassy reopening. Mayan, what can you share with us?
Well, Ariella, I'm standing here right near the American embassy in Jerusalem, and I do have some very exciting and finally happy news coming out of the Holy City, and that is that today President Santiago Peña is in the city. He is here to reopen the Paraguay embassy in Jerusalem. That will open at Har Hotzvim Industrial Park and officially begin operations tomorrow.
This morning, Peña met with President Isaac Herzog and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and participated in a special Knesset ceremony. The reopening fulfills a key campaign promise from his 2023 election.
On the outset, I understand that this could be seen as a signal of support to Israel in this difficult moment. But believe me, Mr. President, this is something that we needed to do for ourselves. This is a moral obligation that Paraguay people have asked us to do. And we feel that we are bringing the heart and feeling of more than 6 million Paraguayans, that they feel so close, so attached to the people of Israel.
Nice. Paraguay first moved its embassy to Jerusalem in 2018 under President Horacio Cartes, following the U.S. and Guatemala. However, 5 months later, the decision was reversed by his successor, Mario Abdo Benitez, prompting Israel to close its embassy in Paraguay. In September 2024, Israel reopened its embassy during a moving ceremony. The reopening ceremony in Jerusalem includes the families of Sivan El-Kabetz and Noor Hasidim, victims of the October 7th attacks. A mezuzah that once belonged to Sivan and Noor was affixed on the door of the Israeli embassy in Paraguay. Paraguay now joins a growing list of nations recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, including the United States, Guatemala, Kosovo, Honduras, and Papua New Guinea. Several other countries have announced plans to move their embassies soon, such as Liberia, Malawi, Congo, and Equatorial Guinea in Africa, Argentina in South America, and the Czech Republic in Europe, among others.
Now, the embassy was supposed to open before the October 7th massacre and the ongoing war, but unfortunately, due to the security situation, the opening was delayed. So today really marks an incredible moment of solidarity and support from Paraguay for the people of the State of Israel.
For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. Stay safe and see you next week.